Hello! I'm back to do another tutorial with you. We last left off with making these clay charms. They've been drying for only a day because they're so small, and now they are ready to glaze. These are all the underglaze colors we'll be using today. Because these charms are so tiny, you know I need very teeny tiny brushes. These are the 3 sizes I'll be using today. The one on the very left does the tiny little details. The one on the very right kind of lays down most of the surface area color that I need to do. We are obviously going to start with the croissant again. We love her. Okay, so I haven't used my underglazes in a few months, if I'm being totally honest. So, as I was opening them, I noticed that some of them looked like the Grand Canyon in the middle of summer. This is what the consistency should look like. And all I'm going to do is add a little bit of water to this, and it'll turn into paint again. The charms look a little different than they did in the last video. Once the clay dries, it turns very light and it's no longer cold to the touch. That is how you can tell that your piece is dry enough to underglaze. When I underglaze, I'm doing a layered system. So I want to go with a more realistic vibe for these charms. The croissant is basically 4 different shades of brown. I start with the lightest shade. It's like a very light tan, so that's like the doughy color of the croissant. And then I'll go in with more of like a burnt orange color, do a little bit more detail, and then I go in with the brown color. It kind of adds that toasted look to the croissant, and then I go in with a darker brown for a very toasty look. Okay, so I've said the word underglaze like 25 times already, and I haven't even explained what it is. So underglaze is the glaze that you paint on the piece before it's been bisque fired. You can do it after, but I do it before it's fired, even the first time. It's what you can use to get the most amount of detail. So like the typical glaze that you probably think of when you think ceramics is that like drippy look and the colors like blend in together. So that is the glaze that you use after it's been bisque fired. Okay, so this is before. And this is because I don't want these colors to run. And this glaze is the perfect way to achieve that. This glaze is made out of clay and the color and water, and I think a few other chemicals that I'm unaware of. And if my ceramic teacher is listening to me, he is probably shaking his head. That's fine. So this is me going in with that burnt orange color, and I'm kind of just being rough with the color because with these croissants, I feel like the rougher I go with the paint, it looks more like a flaky, buttery croissant. At this point in time, I think it's safe to say that I've made over 1,000 croissants, whether it's these little necklace charms or my croissant candle holders. I've made croissant lamps, like table lamps. I have made croissant Christmas ornaments. So yeah, this paint job that I do on these croissants, it's so crazy how many times I've done it. These underglazes and just glaze in general is kind of tricky because when it dries, it's like a very pale version of what the color is going to actually be. So once this has been fired, it's kind of a totally different color. And then once it's been fired again with the clear glaze on top of it, which is what I do for these charms, the colors are even more different. So this is a lot of trial and error. Like at the beginning when I was making these, I'd make some of them look like way too toasted, that they were totally burnt in the oven, or I would make them look severely undercooked. So this has just been a journey. I also want to mention that as I was darkening the colors on these croissants, my brush got smaller. So when I go in with the brown and then the darker brown, I'm using this little baby brush, and it's getting all those flaky layers of croissant. I'm gonna tell you a little secret about myself right now, and I feel embarrassed to admit it, but I am actually gluten-free. Yep. These little bitches give me the worst stomach ache. Get bloated. I can't do it. It's so sad. Maybe that's why I am obsessed with making bread in my art. Like, I make these. I have still life paintings that I do of croissants and baguettes, and I think somewhere deep down it's healing. It's healing me slowly. I still miss bread so much. So now we're on the very last layer, and it's the darkest brown. I don't do too much because, like I said, there's a fine line between a toasty croissant and a burnt croissant, and we don't want a burnt croissant. So I ended up making 20 of each of these designs for the charms. So I will have 20 of these necklaces available when my series is complete and the process is done. They're gonna be available on my website, and I'll let you know the date of that. I'm just not sure yet. Okay, so the little croissant baby is all done. And you'll see as I'm placing these croissants down, the ones I just finished are the darker ones. And like I said, the underglaze lightens up and becomes a pale version of itself as it dries. And now we are moving on to the baguette. The baguette has a very, very similar process to the croissant, except it goes a little bit faster, but I'm using all 4 of the same colors and they're layered the same. But yeah, like I said, it just goes like way quicker. That croissant is very time consuming. I think it's the most time consuming charm that I have. As you can see, I'm already going in with that burnt orange color. And then I'll add a little bit of the brown and then even a little less of the dark brown to make a toasty baguette look. So first happened when I was painting these baguette charms. I actually dropped one into the brown underglaze. Yep, here it is. Don't worry, we fixed him up and he looks good as new. Yeah, I opened my yellow, another Grand Canyon, Sahara Desert. Just adding a little bit of water, mixing it up, and then I swear it's good as new. It's so easy. The next one we're doing is the brie cheese. It is far too simple, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. This is my first time doing a little wedge of cheese. I usually do the whole block, so I'm excited to see how this one turns out. Since I have my yellow out, I'm gonna do these little lemons. You already know that this little lemon is so simple. One color, all the way around. I love her for it. If I don't get my afternoon treat, I actually die. So here I am at Starbucks getting my treat. And now we are back painting strawberries. My most favorite color ever to glaze or to like add into my art is red, and this red underglaze is the best shade of red I've ever seen in my life. Okay, just know that. She's cute, and they're even cuter all together. The red's out. What's next? It's the tomato. The tomato is also pretty simple. The whole thing is red, and then I'm gonna go in with my darker green and yeah, the darker green. And I'm going to add the little leaves that's on top. I wanted to zoom in so you could see the little detail work, but I wanted to speed it up because I'm a very slow painter. Did you know that about me? I'm very slow. Now it's the little baby olive's turn, and it's my favorite shade of green. I'm just now realizing I don't know what's in the middle of an olive, like a martini olive. Is it called a pimento? Pimento sounds right. If I might be wrong, I have no idea, but you know what? It's red. These are ready to be bisque fired. I don't have my own kiln, so I took them to the ceramic studio. They were fired, and now I am on my way back to the studio to put the glaze coat on them. This is what the charms look like after the first firing. The colors are definitely more vivid. Here's a side-by-side of a fired piece, which is the darker one, versus a not fired piece, which is the pale color light ones. The next step is adding the clear coat. So this is the final glaze that I'm going to put on it before the second firing. This is that glaze that makes the pieces look shiny and glossy and basically turns them into glass. I can't wait to show you guys the color difference between the beginning of when I'm underglazing to the very finished product, because I think you're going to be so surprised with how it changes. I hope this goes without saying, but the way I do things in these videos, it's not like you have to do it this way. This is just the technique that I found works for me for this particular project. So if you do things differently, or if you find techniques that work better for you, there's really no right or wrong way. You know, as long as you get a whole ceramic piece that comes out of the kiln and doesn't blow up, you're fine. And there's many, many different ways to do this type of thing. All the little white charms on that tray are the ones that I've completed. So basically that chalky white is going to turn clear and glassy, and they will be so pretty. After I finish all these pieces, I put them on this like little tiny rod because they can't sit directly on the kiln shelf or they will stick to it and they will be ruined, and the kiln shelf will be ruined and all the things. So they hang on these little guys, and that prevents bad things from happening. So now we've completed video 2 of 3. The next one, I'll reveal what the charms look like, and we will put these necklaces together. I'm so excited!